Hello. How's everybody doing? We are here. Welcome to the Laughing Place Movie Club. We are going to be talking about Disney Plus's Clouds, which is currently streaming. Stay tuned after we're done. Mike and Rebecca will be talking about the first look of The Mandalorian that just aired during Monday Night Football. So, dun, 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 dun. But we're going to not talk about that. We're going to talk about Clouds on Disney Plus. So, Alex, you reviewed the film. Thoughts?
I mean, Clouds is very emotional. It's a beautiful, I would say, love letter to this story that really caught a lot of people's attention about a boy who, made his kind of last several months on Earth really count by doing something that he loved, but something that also inspired a lot of other people. I think the real story is very inspiring and motivational. And really the big takeaway, especially during these weird times right now from Clouds, is just, have a more positive outlook on life. Everything that not only Zach, but his family and his friends are going through, and they all got through it. And, you kind of look at the Sobiech family in Clouds and think if they can get through that year, we can get through 2020,
Yeah, and I think it's important to separate the story from the film in that there's no question the story is inspiring, and that the family and Zach's courage and I would say strength in adversity, is obviously inspiring, on its own, of course. And that's why this movie was because people were inspired by the story before the movie. This isn't like, we talked last week, The Fault in Our Stars. It's obvious to draw comparisons, but this is not a book. This is a real life story. Though I definitely was inspired. Definitely makes you want to make your life count. Not that we're all going to have chart-topping songs like Zach did in his final days, but
and then again now,
yeah. But as a film, I did feel it was a little long.
It is. It has a pretty slow pace, especially for a movie, where if you read the log line, what's coming. And even I feel like this one less than The Fault in Our Stars with the narration, but it kind of tells you right up front, this is what you're in for. This is what's coming. So it does feel like it meanders a little bit. We watched it separately, but I had seen it before you. So you were texting me as you were watching it. At one point you texted, does this convertible car have anything to do with the plot? And I realized it does kind of get him to that next existential crisis. But you're right, there's a lot of those moments where it just feels like this happened in real life, so we're paying honor to it, paying service to it in the film. But I do agree that just translating, it's very faithful to his life, which I think is great. But I feel like if they had taken a few more creative liberties, it may have made for a better film, or just tightened up the story a little bit even. But there is one part that is actually my favorite bit in the movie that I'm glad is there, because it has nothing to do with the main plot, but it's a scene between Neve Campbell and Tom Everett Scott,
Mm-hmm.
3 first names, as the parents, kind of talking out on the back patio, and the mom is just having this breakdown, you're closed off, you're doing your own thing, you're not helping, and then the dad turns around and just breaks down, and it's this is all, they're both doing the best they can. And I feel like a lot of these kinds of movies or stories don't really talk about what happens to a marriage when you have something like this happening in the family. And I thought that was really sweet and nice to see. I thought it made the film stand out amongst other films about, teens or kids with terminal illnesses.
I also felt, I mean, not to the extent that it handled it with the parents, but the siblings moments. You know,
Mhm.
you have the older brother who's just trying to handle it by being like his brother's bro, you know, and you know, not really emotionally be available, but still trying to support him in you know, in a way he can. And then you have, you know, sort of the sister who tries not to care, but you can tell really does. And then you have a more sort of traditional sister who's just like worried and you know, um is just handling it different than her other sister, you know, his other sister. So I thought that was interesting, yeah, because you know, so often these films don't, you know, it's they sort of turn into a teen romance, and you know, you lose sight of the family element sometimes.
Mhm.
What I thought was interesting was, you know, this definitely had a complicated but true romance angle,
Mhm.
and you know, it was maybe because it was real, it kind of gave him liberties to be a little bit more honest with that kind of thing, and I thought that was a nice touch. You did mention that the song that inspired the movie, "Clouds," uh, soared again to the #1 spot on iTunes just 2 days after the release of this movie on Disney Plus. And um, the when it was released, it had been viewed 4 million times. It's now up to 15 million times. Um, and you know, it's part of, you know, the revenue from that is tied to, you know, the foundation. You know, this is trying to find a cure for osteosarcoma, the form of cancer Zach suffered from.
Yep.
So there's definitely a positive spin to that. Um,
Yeah, and
but
viewers too who are inspired by him and want to make a contribution, you can Google the Zach Sobiak Fund, and that'll the link will come up directly to the site, and you can make direct donations to the fund as well. But yeah, what's cool was before the movie came out, I was looking because I'd done some of the press stuff for the film, and Sabrina Carpenter in her interviews had talked about listening to Zach and her character's musical duo because they recorded a full album, and their band name is A Firm Handshake. And before the film came out, all that I could find it available on was CD on Amazon, and they had like 2 copies left. And now it's on Apple Music. Like I think the whole Firm Handshake album is available streaming now in the wake of Clouds coming out. And I don't know if it has anything to do with the song suddenly trending again. But I thought that was interesting when I looked today, that their full album is available on Apple Music. I'm assuming it's on Spotify and SoundCloud and all of those. And then the Clouds soundtrack as well. Obviously, it has the actors' versions of those songs, but there is one really cool moment in the film that the actor who plays Zach in the film, Finn Argus, essentially wrote the song with Zach from Beyond the Grave, the one that he sings to his girlfriend in her room. He didn't actually in real life have a song that he had written for her, at least not one that he had written down. So Finn Argus came up with the melody and tweaked some of Zach's unused lyrics for songs that he never produced, as well as drew influence from some of his journal writings about his girlfriend Amy. So I thought that was really kind of cool.
I didn't know that. That's really cool.
Yeah.
The other thing I think is impressive is that, you know, I was just looking, you know, I check what's trending on Disney Plus just because I think that's insightful to kind of know where, you know, what's popular on the service. And typically, like Secret Society of Second Born Royals would be sort of maybe towards the end or not even appearing, you know, a movie like that. Or even if you look right now, the rights, you know, there's no other original series, with the exception of Mandalorian, that is trending except for Clouds, which follows The Simpsons, you know, some of the Halloween movies, Frozen 2, and then Clouds, followed by The Mandalorian. So this
Wow.
is performing really well for the service, which is, to me, is kind of interesting because they this was a bot film, right? It's a Warner Brothers movie that, you know, due to the trying times, Disney Plus essentially bought from Warner Brothers to have something on the service. I'm sure Warner Brothers wasn't going to be able to release it theatrically as they may have done otherwise, or whatever else they were going to do with it. And so, probably, it definitely has a Disney Plus vibe to it. It fits really nicely on the service. So, but it is not a Disney Plus born and bred movie like Secret Society of Second Born Royals or Lanely Tramp or anything like that.
And do you think it's interesting if you look at the album artwork for the soundtrack, they put Wayfarer Studios like really big in the bottom corner of the soundtrack, like to kind of let you know, hey, this isn't Disney, which is interesting.
Yeah,
and there's other things that were produced by other companies for Disney Plus, like the Diary of a Future President was what was it, CBS?
Yeah,
the show. So there's other things like that, but this one, it was completely produced without Disney's involvement.
Right, and it's funny because two originals, Warner Brothers also is the studio behind The Right Stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Nat Geo, licensed it or did partnered with them on it, but so there's a lot of
Warner Brothers
on Disney Plus right now, which is funny because obviously HBO Max is trying to get a foothold in the whole market too, but
they have the Selena Gomez cooking show.
that sounds more enticing than it probably should.
It's actually really fun. Not this is way too much of a tangent, but it's like celebrity chefs come on Zoom and try and teach Selena Gomez like a fairly complicated recipe. It's good to watch. I recommend.
I'll put that on my HBO Max list. We just watched Clash Action Park on HBO Max, and that's something that all Disney fans should watch just to appreciate the magic that is Disney and not Action Park in New Jersey.
Yeah, to compare it to a company that puts your safety first instead of like out of
So, do you have a favorite moment of Clouds?
I think my favorite moment just emotionally is that one between the two parents. But probably the most fun moment was when he and Sabrina Carpenter's character got to go to New York and sign their contract with the record producing company. I just love that little bit of like them on the plane being so excited to go and then taking their pictures with their, I forget the name of the company, but BMI. They get their like BMI baseball caps on. That moment sticks out to me as being particularly fun. I did really love the way they portrayed their friendship. I was actually connected a little bit more with that than the relationship with the girlfriend. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was really sweet too. Towards the end, there's a moment where like Sabrina Carpenter came to dinner. Zach can't come upstairs. He's not feeling well enough, but they're like, no, stay. But then they're having this very real family moment with her right there. Like you just got without any exposition needed that she's so close. She's like family to the whole family without them having set that up before that moment. The only other moment that's like even close is when the song is playing on the radio, which is fairly nearby. And the mom, like I think is shopping with her. And then they like start running around.
And you don't see that kind of relationship. Everyone has that. Everyone has their best friend growing up, whether, the opposite gender friend it's not a girlfriend, it's just your friend. And, that changes as time goes on, but you don't see that kind of relationship reflected all that often, or, it starts that way and then they end up becoming boyfriend and girlfriend and,
Well, and there was a little bit of that. Like there was a moment between the two of them that really reminded me of Love, Simon, when his best friend, who is a girl, like ends up having very strong feelings for him. I think a lot of teenagers who are opposite gender best friends go through that at some point. I thought they handled it really well. But honestly, that relationship between her and the family, the closest thing that it reminded me of was Sean and Corey's family on Boy Meets World, ironically, because I think we both know Sabrina Carpenter better as the like new Sean character from Girl Meets World.
Yeah, and I think you always you have those friends. I had them growing up where it's like they're family, and your family considers them family, and you know, you go on vacation together, you celebrate the holidays together. You know, I know you have that, and you know, it's you know, and the complicated nature of it is, I think it was nice to see that reflected, because I'm sure it was like that in real life. You know, I mean, I'm sure, you know, it might not have been said in so many words, but you know, it had to come up.
Right.
But
What about you? What was your favorite moment?
I was impressed by the acting at the finale.
Mm.
You know, he's singing, you can see him struggle, you can see him trying to fight. You know, it's not just the typical, like, I have cancer meltdown scene that everyone has seen, like everyone have. But
In these types of movies, to clarify.
Yeah. And so, you know, when you're sick, and I mean, not that I've been this sick, but you know, when you're sick, you know, it's not as linear as that. You know, it's not like you have the cough and, you know, the opening scene, so you know you're going to die by the end of the movie, and you know, you just get sicker and sicker. I mean, it's, you fight through it. You have good days, you have bad days, and so, you know, it was the performance of him trying to fight through it, to reject the paramedics. I just thought was really strong acting, which, you know, you don't normally see in these kinds of movies, is, you know, that level of performance. Usually it's very, you know, I guess, you know, melodramatic. But
yeah, and that I would say too, you know, Finn Argus, this is kind of his first really big role. I think it's his first time carrying like a whole film as the lead character, as far as I could tell from his IMDb. And in the press junket interviews, someone had mentioned that. I think the moderator mentioned that, like, how hard was that for you? But I thought that was really cool. Another thing I want to mention too, is just that the family was quite involved with the filmmaking. The actual screenplay was based on a book that Laura Sebiak wrote following her son's death. And then she was available as a consultant. She met with Nev Campbell. Tom Everett Scott met with the real dad. Sabrina Carpenter's character, she met with the real girl, and they actually became friends through the process, which was pretty cool. She talked about, because Sabrina Carpenter's got her own music career going, and she said she will routinely like send her song demos and be like, I want your input. What's your thought on this? Because, you know, she started respecting her just as a songwriter throughout this whole process, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, and you know, Marvel fans may recognize Finn Argus as the young Gordon from the final season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., although you can't see his eyes in that show. So, but that, you know, to have a sort of unknown come out that was able to really portray it, from the, you know, chemo version of him to the, you know, no longer chemo but still sick, to the really sick, and, you know, the final moments. I was really impressed. You know, it wasn't a flat performance. Mm-hmm. And Nev Campbell and Tom Everett Scott, I think, did a good job too. You know, they it's being a parent in that moment is hard. I mean, we talked about it when we saw Fault in Our Stars. It's, you know, you have to put out a brave front, but you obviously are, you know, being torn down inside because your child is sick. And you know, the nuance there is, I think, impressive. It's not just I'm sad, I'm happy, I'm sick, I'm healthy. There was layers to it.
Mm-hmm. A literal roller coaster of emotions.
Yeah, you know, and it's a shame that there was sort of pork in it. Like, I don't think the whole car thing was necessary. You know, I think
the car trip. More than that, I think that trip, the family trip where they go to like bathe him in the water.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
As far as I can remember, that has nothing to do with like anything after that. This moment where like they have a little bit of hope.
I also like
family dynamic moments, but that whole scene felt unnecessary to the plot in a 2-hour film that could have, you know, lost some fat.
I also really liked Lil Rel Howery's
as the teacher.
As a teacher. which is funny because in the movie the teacher's first name is Milton, which is Lil Rel's real first name.
Oh wow.
So, I mean, I'm sure it was not an inside joke, but the playing a teacher, it's not a Mr. Feeney type. He's a, I don't want to say he's a cool teacher, but he's trying to teach while also trying to be caring, and it's a more real. I had teachers like him, Mr. Pierre. I'm looking at you if you're watching, which you're not. But I thought that was a touching character. For a guy who's known as sort of comedy, he was able to have fun and definitely provided some levity and some which is needed in a movie like this.
Mhm.
But
what did you think of the time telling technique
with the clouds?
With the clouds, but the clouds always as a reflection. And I thought it was really beautiful how they established, writing in the clouds.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end moment when in their picture there's a cloud that looks like a Z. Like I felt like that made it so much more chilling. Like if you hadn't had that way of telling you like it's spring, it's fall, this is the year you're in. If you hadn't had the clouds always in reflection of like a car window in the sky telling you when you are in the season, at the end when it actually looks up directly to the sky and you see the Z, I don't feel like it would have had the same chill factor.
I also have to say that I liked the song, which isn't related to the movie. I mean, it isn't from the movie, but I was not exposed to the song before, and it's been caught in my head. And I think it's a really sweet song because it's not a it's a good song in its own right. It's not a pity song. It's not a people aren't downloading it just because they feel sad. It's an actual good song, and I wasn't I'm not into the music scene, so it's not anyone's fault but mine, but I was glad I was exposed to it because it's a nice little ditty.
Yeah, and you can definitely feel the Jack Johnson influence on the style of that song. I thought it was funny that they went to a Jack Johnson concert.
Jason Mraz?
Oh, they went to it was Jason Mraz. Yeah, it does have a very like I'm yours kind of feel. That's what I was thinking of. And yeah, I also wasn't familiar with the song before the film's existence. While I am tapped into music, I generally am not huge on like what's trending well in the charts. I care more about like the art. There's artists that I like, and then they'll recommend or collaborate with other artists, and then I'll go like down a rabbit hole, kind of following those shoestrings. But I rarely like go and look at what's the top 5 songs and listen to them and like them, because a lot of the times it's just not my taste. Like WAP is not my idea of a top hit song.
And I don't even know what WAP is.
And that's for the best. It's not for here.
Okay. So any other thoughts on Clouds before I move into something else?
Just I think it's a very sweet story. The film is maybe a little over lengthy and could have trimmed things up a little bit better to be a better, more concise motion picture. But I'm so grateful to have learned this story through the film. I think a lot of people are feeling that way, and I think that's why the original song by Zach Sobiak is back to #1 on iTunes. And definitely, I think there's a lot of great messages in the film that everybody can apply to their daily lives.
I agree, and it's not a movie I would have watched, without it being on Disney Plus. It wouldn't have got my attention, but it's one of those that I'm glad did. This isn't related to Clouds directly, but with it being breaking news as we kind of came on the air, I did want to share that Jeff Bridges, who Disney fans know as Flynn from Tron, as well as he's the dude, and is currently in production on an FX show from Hulu called The Old Man. Has announced that he has lymphoma. And Disney has put out a statement, or various divisions of Disney have put out a statement saying, our thoughts go out to Jeff and his family during this challenging time, and they have our love and support. We wish him a safe and full recovery. And as Jeff always says, we're all in this together. Jeff, we are all in this together with you. So obviously we echo that statement. And not only is he a Disney luminary, but he has a good reputation of being a good man, and we wish him a speedy recovery.
Absolutely.
So thanks so much for joining us for Laughing Place Movie Club. We will be back live in about 30 minutes, where Rebecca and Mike will be talking about the Mando. We'll be kicking off our Mando Monday series with talking about the first look that just aired on Monday Night Football, as well as some other things. We will be back next week with the Laughing Place Movie Club, where we're going to be talking about The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, the third Narnia film, which was not released by Disney, but thanks to the magic of the 21st Century Fox acquisition, is now a Disney movie. Don't you love it when a plan comes in? You thought it was all about the X-Men. That's what this whole thing was about. Nope. It's all about Voyage of the Dawn Treader and reuniting the Chronicles of Narnia series.
Yep.
So thanks so much. Also, don't forget, tomorrow we will be having some park content. So if you're not subscribed, subscribe, ring the bell, do all those things. And we'll be back in just about half an hour for coverage of Mando Monday. Bye, everybody.